The Melbourne Symphony Orchestra respectfully acknowledges the traditional custodians of this land, the people of the Eastern Kulin Nation. On this unceded land, we celebrate the oldest continuous music practice in the world. In our language of music, we honour this country and offer our support to elders past, present and emerging, and embrace our shared future.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ben Northey. On behalf of the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, I'd like to welcome you all here for this very special event tonight, the MSO's Cybec 21st Century Australian Composers Program Showcase Concert for this year, an annual event which has been going on for 20 years now, and we're going to be focusing on that fact tonight as the evening unfolds. I'd like to welcome not only all of you who are here in the room with us tonight, but you can see by all of the cameras around here, we are live streaming this concert as well, and a big welcome to all of those of you who are joining us on the live stream. So as I mentioned, this is a significant anniversary for this groundbreaking composition development program, the 20th anniversary, and the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra is incredibly proud of its emerging artist development programs, and in particular the 20 years of the Cybec Foundation supported programs and their impact that they have had. In this program alone, I'm sure you've all got the program booklets there, the alumni of Australian composers who've gone through this program, 79 of them, many with great careers in what is a fraught career pathway at the best of times. It's not a guarantee of a career as a professional composer, but when you look at all of the people who have careers, who have emerged over the past 20 years, they've all come through this program. Here. And it's great for me to see that as well. I mean, I go around the Australian orchestras regularly conducting works of alumni of this program, and I can see many of you here tonight, which is wonderful. And it just shows you what can be achieved with a long-term strategy and investment in development. And I'd like to really acknowledge this partnership between the MSO and the Cybec Foundation, who have made it all possible, many of whom are here with us tonight. And I'd also like to acknowledge the role of Roger Reardon, the founder of the Cybec Foundation, and we dedicate this concert to his memory. I'll never forget Roger, who I knew very well, coming up to me after one of these concerts a number of years ago and saying, "Ben, I think this music falls into 3 categories." I said, "Really, Roger, what are they?" He said, "Well, weird, weirder, and very weird," was how he saw it. But he was immensely proud of the program and the impact that it had. And we're delighted to have representatives from both the Foundation and Roger's family who are here with us tonight as well. I was really honoured to be the Patricia Reardon Associate Conductor of the MSO from 2012 to 2017. And it had a tremendous impact on my professional development and a career as a conductor, as it has done for tonight's conductor as well, because I'm not conducting tonight, which is why I can wear this shirt. It's lovely. Carlo Antonioli is supported by Cybec as well through the Cybec Assistant Conductor Fellowship. He's been doing great work with the MSO, as you will see tonight. Speaking of great work, please welcome the musicians of the MSO and their concertmaster Tayyar Kisambiev, and I'll invite Tayyar to tune the orchestra. Thank you. And to conduct the first performance of tonight's concert by Melody Ertversch, who is with us here tonight, How to Grow Your Own Glacier. Melody was a participant in the 2019 Cybec Composition Program. It's my great pleasure to welcome my colleague, Carlo Antonioli. Thank you so much, Melody, the imaginer of all of these sounds, the person from whose mind all of these sounds came forth. What a fantastic and evocative work, and a beautiful way to start. I've conducted a couple of your pieces, but we've never actually met in the flesh. That sums up the last 2 years, doesn't it? Tell me, cast your mind back to 2019, when you were a participant in this program. What kind of experience was it, and what kind of impact did it have on you?
I was actually just telling Mary how I was thinking I should have done this 10 years before I actually did it. I'm so glad I didn't, though, because of the circumstances and getting to work with the musicians that I did, getting to work with Mary, of course. But my experience of it was I really had always wanted to work with MSO. And having just moved here from the States in 2018, this was my opportunity. So it was a beautiful open door to work with this incredible orchestra, and I took it.
It's beyond just hearing your piece, isn't it? It's the experience of working with the musicians that probably makes this even more unique. And I've got to say, I mean, you've really established yourself as one of Australia's most distinctive compositional voices.
Thank you.
You're being played a lot. You're being commissioned a lot. I mean, Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, the Harp Concerto. That's something that's a major work of yours. But I'm seeing here Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra, Sydney Symphony Orchestra, many other commissions, and that's incredibly exciting to see, and a great example to other composers as well that this is a possibility. Was that something that was on your mind, that this was going to work out this way?
We always like to think that it would work out, but it's good as composers we develop very thick skins, so you can get your hopes up, but it's all about the work that you put into it and maintaining your connections, and being a good person to work with as well is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's great to have your music on the concert tonight. Would you please thank Melody Ertbush?
Thank you
so much, Melody. Thank you. I don't know where that goes. Maybe you can hand it over. And now we move on to the performances of the 4 works by this year's participants in the Cybec 21st Century Australian Composers Program. And just a little bit of background about what the program actually is. So 4 composers each participate in a year-long program assigned to establish, each of them assigned to established Australian composer mentors. And again, many of them who are here tonight, I can see in the audience. They have workshops with the MSO musicians. They work closely with the music librarian on those parts and the publishing of their materials. And that culminates in this evening, the performance of 4 world premieres. So the first work this 4 participants will hear is by Julia Potter. Would you please welcome Julia to the stage? Hi Julia, how are you?
I'm good.
I was lucky enough to be at the rehearsal, and I know that everybody's in for a treat. Tell me about your experience with the program this year.
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's not often that you get to work with an orchestra, let alone like the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. So incredible opportunity, and I was lucky enough to work with Gerard Brophy. For a couple of Zoom calls back and forth, and he was great.
The piece we're going to hear is called Stay Close, and I can see by the program note that you've dedicated this to your family and friends, the importance of those relationships. How do you come up with an idea for a new piece of music? How did this idea come to you, for example?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, we were all chatting about it before, because sometimes the music comes first and sometimes the concept comes first, and then choosing what to go with. I think for me, when I was starting to write this piece, I was improvising on the piano like I sometimes do, and I think the ideas that were my strongest and the ones that I felt that worked best together felt very emotional and washes of emotion. And I think also concurrently I have had a lot of friends and loved ones moving overseas, and I think that's just what happens in your 20s, and also just people pursuing their careers. So it all seemed to tie together really nicely, and I thought, well, it's a good way to look at the nature of relationships waxing and waning and changing and going online and seeing them in person, and
Well, I know that we all can't wait to hear it. Would you please thank Julia Potter, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you so much, Julia. This is Stay Close. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you so much, Julia. It's wonderful. That piece is now in the world. That ship has been launched. Congratulations on that world premiere of that beautiful piece, Stay Close. On to work number 2 now, the last work of this half of the concert, Vita Nostra by Christopher Healy. I'd like to invite Christopher to join me up here on the stage. Welcome, Christopher. I'm looking forward to hearing this again, this wonderful and colourful piece. I wondered, you know, many people who aren't composers here tonight might be thinking, how do you start as a composer? Do you remember the time where you became really interested enough to want to pursue this seriously?
I do, actually. It was reasonably late in high school. It was just classroom music assignment was to go and write a piece of music. And at the time, I remember very distinctly, we'd probably been doing Bach or something in class, and I chose a fugue by Bach, and then I basically rewrote it with my own notes. So I did something very basic, but that kind of started me off on that, and then from there, you know, you explore all kinds of other things, and then you end up here, hopefully.
Every composer, you know, hopefully, ideally, has their own style and their own voice. How do you think your style evolved, as it were? Like, what are the influences on you that have led to your compositional style?
Oh, they're very, very broad and very, very diverse. It's one of the big challenges being a composer in the 21st century is that you are surrounded by music of all colours, shapes, sizes, intensities, you know, vibrancies. Everything is out there. It's a panoply of just whatever you could possibly want. And I don't actively think about, you know, what it is that I want my voice to be about. I just think about what's arriving for me in this piece that I'm working on. So, you know, when I'm writing a piece of music, it's kind of like someone's given you a box of puzzle pieces, for example, and you open the lid and you start rummaging around and pulling out these pieces, and you don't know what the puzzle is that you're creating at the time. But as you pull these pieces out and you connect them together, something starts to emerge, and you know, you're like, oh, it's a picture of a monkey. And then you work out the background that goes around the monkey and so forth. And eventually, hopefully, you have a piece of music that is satisfying for you and for people who are listening to it.
I like the description in your program note about your music being eclectic. It's atmospheric and evocative, from the transfixingly tender to the disturbingly macabre. So that's something for us to look forward to. This piece is inspired in part by the dark fantasy novel of Ukrainian authors Marina and Serhiy Dyachenko. Tell us about that influence on the work.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of my music pays in some form tribute to a book that I've read that I found poignant or interesting or fascinating or captivating. And Vita Nostra was one of those examples. It is a fantasy novel and a very dark and very strange a novel. I won't go into too many details about it because it's in your program, and you go read the book. It's wonderful. I hope if you're into fantasy, you'll love it. I guarantee it. But yeah, so I just wanted to capture, in particular, the story is full of this struggle that the main character is going through. There's this tension between what she is and what other people are telling her she should be. And she's fighting this the whole way, and then she finds her own way at the very end of the book in quite a poignant and poetic way. And so I just really loved it, and so I wanted to pay tribute to it with the piece.
Wonderful. Well, it's a powerful title, Vita Nostra, Our Life, and then it goes on. Is brief is the rest of the title. So would you please thank Christopher Healy, everybody. Thank you so much, Christopher. To perform the world premiere of Vita Nostra, Carlo, Antonioli and the MSO. Christopher Healy, and congratulations, Christopher, on the world premiere of Vita Nostra. Okay, so we're going to have a 20-minute interval now. So we're at Deakin Edge. There are no bells that are going to go off in 20 minutes to remind you to come back to your seats. Let's just synchronise our watches. I've got 7:19 on my iPad. Let's be generous and say it's 7:20. So 7:40, the music will begin, okay? I'll see you very soon.
2023 marks 20 years of the Cybec 21st Century Australian Composers Program, and all of those 20 years have been in partnership with the Cybec Foundation. The impact of the Cybec program over the last 20 years has been huge. We've seen 80 young Australian composers take part, and it's resulted in 6 young composers in residence at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
I mean, how many opportunities does an emerging composer have to work with a professional orchestra in order to develop their skills and find different ways of translating their artistic expression?
It can seem like there's this huge uncrossable gulf between the world of like student composing or up-and-coming composer and the actual professional world of composing. And it feels like it's almost impossible to get from one to the other. A program like Cybec is vital for actually building that bridge, so getting up-and-coming composers to work with the MSO, meet other composers, meet a mentor, be in that kind of program, which means that you start to enter into that world. It's a wonderful beginning, and without programs like this, that would be just virtually impossible. Like, where do you start?
To be able to go through that process and be treated as a professional composer was a really beautiful and wonderful experience, to have the notes that I was writing treated with respect, and to know that everyone from the conductor to all the players and everyone in the team, the MSO, were genuinely wanting the best outcome for me and for my piece of music.
Orchestras exist in so much more than just the concert hall, and Cybec's participants are afforded the opportunity to refine a craft that is applicable to all areas of the music industry where an orchestra is needed.
The musicians involved in the MSO program are there because they want to be, and they're extremely generous with their time and the information that they impart to the emerging composers. There are so many details regarding articulation and modes of expression, stylistic aspects with regard to each particular work.
I played all of these Cybecs. I've been here since the beginning, and the program has become a bigger part of what we do. As a player, it's just really nice to see someone new come in, work with a mentor, also have access to us as players to ask a few perhaps specific questions about aspects of the composition or aspects of writing for that particular instrument.
You hear it for the very first time, and it's always quite a harrowing experience just to hear those things and have such great musicians listening to your work, possibly judging it. And so you feel quite nervous, and as it comes together and you think, surely this isn't going to sound the way I want it to, then very, very quickly, just from their experience of working together, it does coalesce into this kind of unified whole, and it's quite magical to witness, and really teaches you a lot about how good orchestral music's put together. And then hearing that culminate in a performance with an audience is a real thrill.
Roger Reardon I knew very well. He felt very strongly to give back in some way, widely through the community. And he loved it. He loved meeting the composers. He loved coming to the concerts. He loved the idea of these new things being germinated that wouldn't have existed potentially without his involvement. I think Roger was very, very happy with this project.
This experiential kind of process that really characterises the Cybec program is, I think, one of the most significant and indeed unique opportunities for emerging composers here in Australia.
None of this would be possible without the Cybec Foundation. Relationships like this allow us to support the next generation of Australian artists.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to the Cybec Foundation and the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra on 20 years supporting the next generation of Australian composers.
Thank you so much, everybody, and welcome back. That's a great video, isn't it, outlining the nature of this extraordinary collaboration, and in particular, the role that the mentors play, the composer mentors, and the lead mentor, Mary Finstra, who's here tonight. Big thank you to you, Mary. Where did you go? There you are. A big thank you to you, Mary. Round of applause for Mary, everybody. I'm seeing a number of very well-known Australian composers here, at the risk of embarrassing people and Apologies if I omit anyone. Matthew Heinsohn is here. Stuart Greenbaum, I can see. Katie Abbott, I saw you. Elliot Geiger, I saw you. Joe Kindamo, I think I saw you. There's a number of very, very illustrious Australian composers here, and a big welcome to all of you, and thank you for all of the work you do in mentoring the next generation as well. Speaking of the next generation, on to the next piece we're going to hear, and it's my great pleasure to invite composer Naomi Dodd to the stage. Welcome, Naomi. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your work, Naomi, and I thought, I've been asking composers different questions about things. Perhaps we can talk about the process of composing, which I'm sure is different for everybody. What's your process?
Well, for this piece, I started with the idea. So I wanted to write a piece about Kosciuszko National Park because it's a very special place to me, and memories and place evoke so many ideas, musical ideas in me. So I started there, and then I went to the piano, and I thought, how does that place sound? And I was particularly thinking of a sunrise I watched at a place called Porcupine Rocks, and I was sitting at the piano and improvising, and I settled on some open fifths in the strings on harmonics, which you'll hear, and then some droplets of harp and percussion coming in to just evoke that mood of the morning. And then I develop all those ideas throughout the piece. But yeah, it's a lot at the piano and my flute. So yeah, a lot of improvising. Yeah.
In terms of the makeup of this ensemble that we're working with, is this one of the larger ensembles that you'd written music for, or had you written large-scale orchestral works before this?
Yeah, so I have written 3 orchestral works before, so this is my 4th one. When I was working with Paul Stanhope, my mentor, we did discuss how this orchestra has a smaller string section and the balance that I'd have to consider with that. So that was something that I was considering a lot. But yeah, so working with the other orchestras, I guess, did help know what it would be like.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a challenge, isn't it? Balancing the smaller string section that we have for this ensemble. It's always the same from year to year.
Yeah.
Naomi, the time has come for your world premiere. Please thank Naomi Dodd.
Thank you.
And to perform Dawn Till Dusk in Kosciuszko, please welcome back to the stage Carlo Antonioli and the MSO. Congratulations to you, Naomi, on that world premiere of Dawn Till Dusk in Kosciuszko. I feel like I've spent a day out there myself. It's wonderful. And yes, Rachel Tobin on the cello once more, everybody. Just magnificent. Michael Pisani on the cor anglais, also playing beautifully, and our concertmaster Tayyir Kizambiev with his beautiful solos as well. Thank you, Tayyir. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite our next composer to the stage, Joseph Franklin. Please welcome Joseph. How are you, Joseph?
A little nervous.
What is this feeling like just before you're about to hear your piece performed? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I'm sure everyone would love to hear you talk about it.
Well, I'm frankly more nervous about talking than about having the music.
I know the
performed.
feeling. I know that it's much harder because when you do your talking through music, I suppose that's how we do it. As musicians.
Except when I'm at a party, I talk a lot.
Talk a lot at parties
without a microphone. Yeah.
Good. We're learning a lot about you, Joseph. This is good. In terms of inspiration, I suppose that's something that we haven't really touched on. The nature of inspiration. How do your ideas come to you for these works?
That's a great question. Each work's a different beast to wrestle with, I find, and this work was a combination of conceptual ideas and musical ideas that I wanted to explore. One of them being the nature of the history of colliery bands, brass bands from working class coal mining towns, of which I grew up in and played in a brass band. And juxtaposing that with more contemporary modes of exploration that I'm exploring in my instrumental practice as a bass player.
I noticed that in your program note you're talking about the span of different kind of disciplines and genres like improvised music, experimental and sound art. How does that play into a notated work like this? How do you incorporate those different elements?
Yeah, well, I suppose depending on the medium that one is working with, it definitely guides the process. So in this case, when you're working with so many musicians, I'm thinking a little more vertically. You got so many sounds, you can stack a lot more sounds than if you're working with a solo instrumentalist or playing solo or playing in an improvised context. So using sort of technical frameworks such as non-octavating scales and all-interval tetrachords for the nerds out there, and sort of playing with modes of music and inserting sort of disruptive chords and things, to create some sort of interest, all with the great help of, in this case, Stuart Greenbaum, my mentor for the project, and Elliot Geiger, who's my master's supervisor.
Yeah, we are in very good hands with those
Sure
two.
am.
Last question, I just wanted to ask, it's one thing to talk about inspiration, and it's as if you just think these things up and you're able to just immediately hear them.
I wish.
I mean, how much time goes into a work of what is this, about 10 minutes, right? So
yeah,
how much time did you spend writing it versus editing it and banging it into shape in terms of the notated music?
Oh, it's hard to quantify, but I think I'm kind of slow with notes on a page. As an improviser, I like to just get it done and get out of there. But I would say several months of composing daily, and then the refining process. Finding minor errors in my score up until yesterday.
It's never finished.
It's never finished. I asked Elliot if that's the case for him, and he said sometimes, and I'm like, of course. Rarely for him.
I just think people don't quite understand the amount of time that goes into putting a piece like this together. So it's interesting to hear you talk about the span of months and the blood, sweat and tears that goes into it. We're looking forward to this world premiere of the work You Are Meadow. Please thank Joseph Franklin, everybody. Thank you, Joseph. Congratulations, Joseph, to you on the premiere of You Are Medio, and congratulations to all 4 of our composers in this year's program. One of these composers will go on to be the 2024 Young Composer in Residence, which is the next step of this pathway. But for all of you, we wish you all the very, very best for the future. We hope that you continue to have a strong relationship with us here at the MSO, and we congratulate you for all of your hard work. Our 4 composers, everybody. Thank you so much. So, the 2024 Young Composer in Residence, which is another program generously supported by the Cybec Foundation, will be announced at our 2024 launch, our season launch in July of this year. But I thought it'd be great for us to have a quick chat to the very first of our Young Composer in Residence, who's in the audience, Aid Vincent. Please come and join us, Aid. There you are. Welcome, Aid.
Thank you.
How are you going, Aid? Are you good?
Good, thanks, Ben.
That's good.
Yes,
good to
very
see
good
you
to be
again.
here.
I
Yeah,
have
you too.
wonderful memories of the work that you did in your role as Young Composer in Residence with the MSO, and of the wonderful music that you composed during that time.
Thank you.
Tell us about, from your perspective, what that opportunity was like.
It was a wonderful opportunity. As one of the people on the video said earlier, it really was the bridge between a potential career and actual career. So I came out of that position and found myself as a working composer. Whereas going into it, it was I felt like a learning composer. And across the space of four works that I wrote for the orchestra, I learned so much. I did the one as part of the Cybec program, and then 3 subsequent works as part of the Young Composer in Residence position. And I learned so much writing the pieces, and then there was all sorts of things around the edges as well. Like I had a session with you backstage where I came back and picked your brain about how am I going to make this electronic acoustic thing happen. And I had lessons with Brenton Broadstock, and I learned a lot from him. And then various other things as well. I went to Indonesia
tell
with
us
the
about
orchestra.
that. What did you do in Indonesia?
So I'm a lecturer as well, and teaching is also a focus of mine. And so in 2018, as part of the position, I went to Indonesia with the orchestra. We put on a summer music camp for a week, and we taught tertiary composition students, or tertiary music students. I was looking after the composition students. We taught them for a week about playing in the orchestra and how to write for the orchestra. And that was a great experience. So there was all sorts of things like that, as well as the.
And what are you working on now?
I'm writing a piece for the Melbourne Chamber Orchestra with Lior again. So he and I collaborated on the one that you mentioned earlier, and we're working together again. So he's going to sing, and the MCO will play the piece. That's happening in November this year. That's the focus for me at the moment.
Yeah, wonderful. Please thank Aid Vincent for coming and joining us,
Thank
sharing
you.
his experience. Thank you, Aid. So yes, one of our lucky composers will be the Young Composer in Residence in 2024 as well. We're going to leave you with one more piece by another alumni of this program. Back in 2012, he was a participant, Lachlan Skipworth, who's gone on to great things. But before we hear that work, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us in celebrating 20 years and supporting the next generation of Australian composers. I'd like to particularly thank the people who are here from the Cybec Foundation. Thank you so much for your generous support. Yes, I think they deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much. And as you can hear, a key part of this program is the collaboration with other artists. And possibly the most important is the collaboration with the people that you see behind me. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for their work with the composers, but also their outstanding playing tonight, the musicians of the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. Thank you so much. And of course, Maestro Carlo Antonioli. You have done a stunning job putting this together, Carlo. You really have absolutely outstanding conducting tonight. Congratulations. So this is a work, our final work for the evening. It's titled Afterglow, and I think it's actually perfect for this this time of the evening and in this venue where you're actually connected with the outside world. Lachlan writes, dusk has always held a special beauty for me, particularly the pervading sense of stillness as the colours in the air slowly shift and fade, quietly settling before the darkness comes. Thank you all for attending this special concert, and good night.